Good evening and welcome to a Late Night Dilly Dilly. It's the Buddy Martin Show on a Monday night. Brought to you in part by Sadie Farm.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to a Late Night Dilly Dilly on a Monday after the 41-14 vanquishing of the Florida Gators cross-state rival, the Florida State University Seminoles. Hope it was a good weekend for you. Most of you are Gators. I would hopefully 95%. You hear this program every night, Monday through Thursday. And of course, the Friday, we have the 11 a.m. show, Football Friday, and we also have a podcast. And over the weekend, we had a couple of pop-up shows, and you folks were kind enough to tune in there. Tonight on the program, we've got Chris Doering, who was there and up in Charlotte watching that 7 overtime game. Man, I'm telling you, I've never seen a football game like that. I couldn't keep up with who was ahead, what overtime it was, who won. I even posted the reverse score. Well, it was 20 minutes till 1 in the morning, so a little long day for me. But anyway, yeah, it was crazy. And, of course, still celebrating the success of the Gators in Tallahassee. There's breaking news here tonight. But let's start first with this. Remember this day? Just a reminder, folks, what does that do for you? As someone said, now there's the first commit right there. It's been a terrific year, and thank you to Dan Mullen for that. More good news tonight, by the way, and that is that Florida has a new commit right here in Ocala. We're going to talk about that. A young man named Rucker. And here he is, the graphic today, Trevante Rucker from right here in Vanguard, Ocala, who is a 2021 commit. I've got a scouting report on him. He's played quarterback and wide receiver, most likely to be a wide receiver at Florida. And I'll tell you more about one of the scouts. We have a scout for the Scott Brantley Trophy, and he saw him play 10 times. And I'll tell you what Danny Williams has to say about him. That's exciting news right there. So coming up at 25 after the hour, Graham Hall, the Minister of Information, will give us a little bit of a roundup on recruiting as we count it down toward that. And then the Iron Duke himself will join us on the program and chat with us about his thoughts over the weekend. It was an unbelievable weekend. I mean, Gator fans, of course, revel in that, will revel in it forevermore. But there were other games, obviously, and crazy. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State, Buckeyes just hammered them. 62 points. Weren't they the number one defense? And then that crazy thing that happened in College Station, 74-72? You're kidding me. That's higher. Didn't the Gator basketball team just lose to Oklahoma 65-60? I mean, it's amazing what's going on in football. I guess there's no defense anymore. What would General Neyland think about that? General Robert Neyland, who was the great one, the coach that taught all the defense up at Tennessee and all those years, and many of the coaches that came from Tennessee, including for, guys like Ray Graves. Ray Graves at Florida was a Tennessee guy. And much of Florida's Tennessee defense came from Tennessee. It was not uncommon to have a 7-0 game back in the day, remember? Yeah, 7-0 game. And to see those kind of scores today, I mean, like I tweeted, it was like a video game in cleats. And is this what the future of football is going to be? I mean, I don't know. It certainly was different if you had to cover it like Chris Doering did and stay up until the wee hours and try to figure out what was going on and then turn around and talk about it. I don't know how Chris Doering did it. We'll find out. He's right here in the program. Here he is. Doering got a touchdown and a touchdown and a touchdown. Just imagine it. If you were in that game, you'd have caught 6 or 7 touchdown passes. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, how about these rules nowadays, man? You know, you can play overtime, which we didn't have when I was in school, and those stats all count. And you can play in bowl games that have stats that count. And you can play an extra 12th game that adds to your stats. I mean, these guys should be putting up big numbers nowadays.
And that's the truth. Bradshaw tells me that all the time. Terry Bradshaw always reminds me that, hey, it was different rules back in those days, man.
That's kind of the old guy thing to say, I guess.
I guess. Get off my lawn guy right there, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, where do we start? I mean, let's. You want to start with the Gators, or you want to start with the 7 overtime game? I'll leave it up to you. Your choice.
Well, the 7th overtime game kept our show from starting on time and kept us from having our post-game meeting at the local establishment. So I was a little bitter about how long the game went, but got to watch an exciting game that obviously was had a lot of people, mostly LSU folks, concerned about the officiating. As you go back and look at those things, the thing I loved about that game is that there weren't mistakes that allowed people to score. These were players making big-time plays in clutch situations, whether it was catches or defensive stops. I mean, it was just a bunch of great plays and a long line of great plays being made. And so, you go back and look at the 4th and 18. I talked to Matt Stinchcomb. He said in person you could tell it was way short. I talked to some other people that were there. The pass interference call was probably the one that I disliked the most, the PI on Greedy Williams. But I don't think there was a bunch of egregious bad calls and the referees were out to screw LSU. I thought at the end of the day, LSU had some opportunities to stop them, even despite some of the penalties or whatever, and they just didn't get it done. And more than anything, I don't think it was an issue where one team won and one team lost. I give credit to Texas A&M, but I certainly don't look at LSU as being a loser in that situation, even though that game will end up in the loss column.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things going on here at the end of the year. And in fact, we'll get to a couple of them here. And one of them is the officiating is getting under fire. And you'll get 2 schools of thought about that. I mean, let's face it, there have been some games where there have been some horrendous calls. Now, I don't know if it's because we have better angles to see all this from or what. It's harder on the field. I understand that. I don't think any official ever calls anything wrong on purpose, obviously. I don't think it's any collusion. I think everybody, when your team loses and there's a bad call, you can blame it on the officials. But the smart players say we shouldn't have left it up to the officials. They'll say we should have taken care of business. And both teams there had multiple times to close it down. And they kept playing Rogers he played a season in one game. And what an unbelievable.
You know what is crazy about Kendrick Rogers is we saw him play the same way against Clemson, and that was like, what do you think, second, third game of the season? I think the second game of the season. And then you're expecting him to have this breakout year, and he completely disappears for the majority of the year. And then the last game of the season comes out and replicates the effort, if not exceeds the effort that he made in that Clemson game. And you wonder, where has this guy been? He's 6'4", 200-plus pounds, got great concentration on the ball, fast. I mean, it leaves you wondering, man.
It does. Well, we had a lot to cover here. Let's start with look, this is the end of the year season, regular season. Now we got championship Saturday. And, obviously we have rivalry week last week. Yeah. A lot of things happened in rivalry. I can't always say that. Rivalry week. And some of it is really there's a bad look, which we'll talk about. We know what we're talking about. Things getting out of hand, as they've always done, but it seems a little more intense than this thing. And then there's coaching rumors, and there's recruiting. And sorting out the information and getting it correct is really hard. But let's start with the good stuff. Let's start with the Florida Gators taking charge, taking over. I just watched a video from YouTube of Mullen telling the team, let's go out and get the ball and score. And that's exactly what they did, and capped off the year that you and I have talked about numerous times during the season that looked like it was on, looked like it was off. Chris Doering, we both have a rooting interest in our school. That's our alma mater. Yeah. But we try to have a modicum of objectivity. You especially have come a long way in that regard. I'm kind of going the other way. I used to be completely, and I'm kind of a little more of a homer now because this is what I do, But let's talk about that game and getting prepared for it and the feeling you had going in. And I know you had other things going on, but give me your assessment of what you saw and why Florida was so well prepared and why they took the game over in the second half.
Well, I thought I liked the game plan, and I tweeted about this during the game. Defensively, they knew that DeAndre Francois could not beat them throwing the football. So it was important to win on early downs, and that's exactly what they did. How many times did we see Florida State in 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12? And every time, Florida basically only rushed 4. They'd go to that rabbit package, which bumps Zuniga down inside. They had C.C. Jefferson and Ja'Kai Polite on the outside, and they were able to get home 5 times and pressure DeAndre Francois a ton of other times. I mean, I don't have the stat sheet in front of me. I think they were maybe 1 of 11 on 3rd downs. So, unless they were going to hit some sort of explosive play, you knew they weren't going to be able to put sustained drives together. So I love the defensive game plan by the coaching staff and Todd Grantham. Offensively, it wasn't flashy. I saw a bunch of Gator fans upset that Florida had wasted opportunities and weren't taking shots. But they just kept leaning on that defense and leaning on them. I think they ended up rushing the ball 52 times for 282 yards. So what I love about these guys, offensively and defensively, they come up with a game plan they feel confident in, and they stick to it. And it may not show the rewards early in the game, but by the time you get to the 3rd and 4th quarter, it is definitely shown to be the proper thing to do, and that was the way the game plan worked out against Mississippi State early in the season. They were able to wear out that defense and nullify the pressure because of all the quick, short wide receiver screens and 3-step drops they used. Right. And they were able to run the football later in the game because they fatigued them. And what you saw was an advantage that Florida felt like they had in the run game. That they popped the long one from Perine, but after that it was just a sustained embarrassment of that defense, and nothing more demeaning and demoralizing than to get the ball run right down your throat and not have anything to do about it.
And Mullen actually told him what to do. If you see this clip from YouTube, he said a little more strain, a little more push. He said, and he said, and some of those 4-yard runs will become. Will become 50-yard runs or whatever the case may be.
You know what's interesting, buddy? I've been watching a lot of Georgia already this week in preparation for Saturday's championship game. If I watch that team, you think about Swift and Holyfield, they got some really talented backs. But what they do, man, is they get a hat on a hat. Whether we're talking about on the offensive line or we're talking about in the secondary, their receivers block really, really well. And more times than not, you see Georgia, chipping away, and then in that 3rd quarter and that 4th quarter is when they break the 70-yard run for the touchdown. Right. And that only happens when you have guys straining, as you talked about there, guys committing to blocking downfield. You never know which run it's going to be that they're going to break. And so if you're not blocking your best downfield every time, you're going to end up costing your team. And I thought that Georgia does a really nice job of that, and Florida is coming along in that direction as well.
I want to get to that Georgia-Alabama game before we got a lot to cover here. But wrapping up the Gators, it looks like, you got a quarterback who's much maligned, who winds up getting 9 wins for you, had a nice game, didn't make any terrible mistakes, didn't play great, but played good enough, as he always has been. And as you point out, the defense, of course, had wore more. And let's be honest, Florida State's offense is horrible. Their offensive line is – I can't think of a Power 5 team that's been any worse in the offensive line the last 4 years. Yeah. I don't know what happened. They got players. They had some players.
They were, like you said, it's not like this is just something that's going on with Willie Taggart. I mean, they were terrible under Jimbo Fisher as well. Right. You said they got players. But I've never seen – you look at their tackles. Their tackles were getting beat as soon as the ball was snapped.
Horrible.
They could not get off. Yeah, it was. I would be embarrassed if I were them for sure. Where they
looked like me trying to run around you or something, trying to block you running around me. I mean, it was ridiculous. But anyway, a great win for Florida. Now, the news today, as somewhat expected, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson announced he's coming out. NFL draft, no surprise.
I was interested by that, though, buddy. Right? I don't understand the timing of that now. It doesn't seem to me that they would have already gotten the review back from the NFL in terms of where they're expecting to see him go.
Right.
I would like to have seen him gather a little more info. I may be wrong about that. They may have already gotten that report, but I don't think they typically do that until the regular season's over. So it was a little interesting, the timing of that announcement today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know either. Several people said, what's the deal here? And I think somebody tweeted, like Edgar Thompson, interesting, the timing, what's the deal on that? I think maybe he knew he was going to do this. And I think maybe, and his mother is on the show occasionally, Mama Johnson, she's something else, and she's outspoken. And I think they tipped her hand a little bit. She did over the weekend, saying, don't get mad at my baby now. He's going to do what he's got to do. I mean, look, that's a personal, individual decision that you have to make. And you have to make that decision. And you've got to, and it involves a lot of money and a future for a family. So I don't have any hard feelings about that. But you're right. The timing was curious. I think maybe they just want to go ahead and get it off their chest, get it out there, I don't know.
I mean, maybe so. I mean, again, I think he's been a great player at the University of Florida. Mm-hmm. Has done some great things since his freshman year, has shown versatility and unselfishness, playing corner and safety, playing in nickel. He definitely has some skills. He's got to be a little more consistent, and I think there's things about his willingness to tackle at times that need to be a little bit more consistent too. But all in all, I'm very pleased with what he's done at Florida and grateful for his service and commitment to the Gators. And like you said, it's a business decision. It's nothing personal. Mm-hmm. I mean, the reason people go to college is to get great jobs. And if you got an opportunity to make a lot of money and get on with that earning potential, then let's go,
Yeah. All right, let's talk about a couple of other things regarding on the listen to this. Who's this?
A little dog fight out here. Sorry.
Who we got going? What are the dogs' names again?
Baxter and Bentley, and
Baxter and Bentley.
My son just got a new one named Scooby. So we got a house full of dogs here, man.
Okay, well, who's the alpha?
Baxter's the old guy. He's
Baxter,
the big one.
Okay.
He's the one that initiated that whole.
He's the senior leader. He's putting on his place.
Yeah.
That's what you call leadership, Baxter. Good job.
That's right.
All right. So all right, a lot going on. We talked a little bit. Who do you think Florida's going to play in the bowl game? I'm rooting for the Peach myself. That will depend upon how. Right now, what's your projection?
I mean, I'm guessing Fiesta probably, but it's interesting to me because I would think that the Fiesta Bowl would probably not want to have Florida come. I think we may have talked about this. Given Florida has not had the greatest of traveling fan bases here lately, and let's say they do get matched up with UCF without Mackenzie Milton, how appealing is that going to be to a lot of Gator fans? So I don't know if they would want to take Florida out there, knowing that it may be difficult for them.
I would think not.
Sell the season.
I would think not. And I don't think this fan base will travel well to Arizona.
No, I don't think so either. Although they should. And,
yeah.
They also didn't show up very well for Missouri and the other early game, whatever that. What was that? South Carolina.
Well, I don't know what's going on there. We've talked about that a lot. You and I have. Yeah. What's wrong? Yeah. It's generally happening around most places. It seems a little more pronounced. I think the best thing that can happen there is what they're talking about in all stadiums, including Tuscaloosa, making it smaller arenas with nicer seats, cutting 20,000 to 25,000 out. We talked about it.
It worked well with the basketball facility, didn't it, man?
Yeah, it did.
I love going in there and watching games at the Odom.
Yeah, it sure did. So we'll see there. But anyway, so we'll see. It's a crapshoot as to what happens on the bowls. But the thing is, they're in, and they're 10 in one poll, 11 in the other. It doesn't really matter now. Because at this point in time, all they're going to be, because who's ahead of them in the games we got this weekend. They're sitting back watching. Some guy's going to get knocked off, and the Gators are going to benefit from that. And they're going to be another number 8, 7, 8, 9 team in there someplace and have a chance to finish maybe 6 or 7 at the end of the year if they beat their bowl opponents. So it's been a very good year. And I think it's Chris. I think when you stop and think about it, what could you have wanted more than that?
Yeah, I mean, in year number one, I was feeling like they were an 8-4 team in the preseason. Once I saw some of the the preseason scrimmages, as we've alluded to and talked about before, and once I saw those opening games against particularly Colorado State and then on to Kentucky, I thought this was a team that we may have needed to downgrade to 6 or 7 wins. And I've been very outspoken about the job that I think Dan Mullen and his staff have done. They have been able to overcome deficiencies that they have in the roster. They've coached to the strengths that they have, and it's been an impressive year that reaped 9 wins. Which you look at 4 last year and where they came from to where they are now. I think every Gator fan's got to be really excited about not only this season but the direction of the program.
For sure. All right, let's talk about coaches. Let's talk about changes already. I know you know about Mac Brown being no doubt going to be the guy. I know that what's the trend that's going on now. Look, the old guys they're recycling. You know, you got Les Miles going to Kansas. Now you've got you got Mac Brown going to North Carolina. There's and then we have others. Look what Herm Evers has done in Arizona State. Amazing coach of the year. Herm Evers is, I think, 62, Saban's 67. So the old farts are doing pretty good, right?
Yeah, I've had this discussion on my show today. I think the hiring of Mac Brown is a tremendous one for North Carolina. Obviously, he knows that culture. He's won there before. He's got a great ability to recruit. He could put a tremendous staff together. I mean, we're not talking about one of the premier football programs in the country. We're talking about North Carolina that has a marginal interest in football at best. So I think it's a great hire for them. If they're not excited about it, they got problems.
For sure, and so now as the dominoes fall, Chris. And by the way, remind folks where they can hear you on the show, just so they know.
Yeah, I'm on the SEC channel on Sirius XM channel 374. Mondays I do a show from 3 to 6 with Chris Childers, and then Tuesday through Friday I'm on with Peter Burns from 7 to 10 a.m. So those are the places you can check us out on the Sirius XM app.
All right, here's the final one, and thanks for coming on the show tonight. Appreciate it very much. The biggest story going right now is Auburn. Recently, in the last 3 hours or 4, there's reports that Malzahn may be fired, which is unbelievable when you consider what it's going to cost him, $31 million or whatever it may be. And now there are all kind of rumors being stoked. They're shopping after. They're going to A-list. I've even heard Bob Stoops' name on that list. I can't believe it. I won't buy it till I hear from his. But that's what they're going to do, apparently. That's at least 1 or 2 reports now. And I had this tweet from Ralph Russo, a veteran reporter from AP on New York. He's been there a long time covering. He says, I'm thinking about a potential conversation between an Auburn booster and Bob Stoops, with the booster trying to explain why it would be a good idea for him to come to Auburn to replace the coach. They just signed to a 7-year contract, and I can just not stop laughing.
Yeah. It would be the stupidest move that they could ever make. One, because I think they'd be getting rid of a pretty good football coach, and you can debate that whether you want to or not, but there's not a whole lot of people that have accomplished what he's accomplished, right? I mean, they just beat Alabama about a year ago, and not many people are doing that. You look at the message that's going to send additionally to people. Who's going to possibly come to be a part of that mess when they know that there's very little security? The biggest thing they need to understand is that they're not Alabama. They have this inferiority complex.
That's the problem right there.
They should be Alabama, and they're not. They never have. They never will be. And so they need to be happy with who they are. So you fire Gus Malzahn, you're not going to get a coach that's worth, that wants to come there, that's worth a damn, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I think it's to just be Auburn. That's good enough, right? For sure.
Yeah,
so
that's the thing. Be Auburn and be, it was a down year. But what do we expect? I mean, it happened to my guy Gene Chizik 2 years after he won the national championship.
Yeah, he knows a thing or two about it.
Yeah.
What did Chiz say about all that?
I'll have to leave that to him to say.
Well, just give me a hint.
No, I mean,
just taste of it.
Everybody, you'd be amazed. You probably wouldn't be. With all the tweets, they were hitting us this weekend about. He did a breakdown on Alabama and some of the things that concern him about their defense coming out of that Auburn game. And the people on Twitter are being vocal about, he's biased towards Auburn. they don't seem to remember Auburn fired him. Why would he be biased towards the place that fired him? You know, I think it's just ridiculous to everybody. He's more of a Gator than he is an Auburn guy, you know?
Yeah. You know, we have to have another show to talk about this because I've got a whole litany of things to talk about. We had our conversation earlier this year when you got one of those Twitter firestorms. We talked about it, and somebody misread and called you names. And I had a little taste of it last week when I made the mistake of making a comment about, I didn't think it was a mistake, about Urban Meyer. You know, and I won't go into it here because it gets everybody upset. But my statement was that there were some people who probably need to apologize to Urban. And you know, and I don't, you know, and people just took that out of context. I'm talking about specifically individuals, maybe a couple in the media, you know, but I got hammered on Twitter with 50 comments and they were 49 of them were vile. I mean, absolutely vile, including you probably voted for that and blankety blank guy in the White House and all that, you know. Oh no.
That's the ultimate comeback, right? Everybody, you do something wrong, they paint you as being a Trump supporter.
Exactly.
I mean, I've seen that all over.
It's amazing how people interpret that. And this is what I always want to say, and I'll let you go with this. When someone says to me, let's just take an example of, well, I won't even use Urban because people get upset. Let's say that Chris Doering is a Gator, but he talks behind our backs, and he says bad things about Dan Mullen behind his back, and he's not really a true Gator. So my next question is, and you know this how? Yeah. Where do you get this from? You know, did you talk to Chris? Were you standing there? No, they just divide it. They say, "Oh, this is what happened." It's unbelievable.
Problem is, you put it on there, and it's facts. You know, so it's there's no real filter. People get a voice that probably don't necessarily deserve a voice or have ever had a voice before, and
I guess that's it.
That's my problem. I think you pointed out. I'm replying to a guy that has 38 followers. What am I doing? What am I wasting my time doing?
Some guy you were giving you back. You had a good one about his spelling of his. You know, obviously the word. You know, you're just trying to poke fun at him, and I had to look him up, and I wrote back, he said something about he was sick and tired. You're doing a terrible job on SEC Network. Yeah. And I wrote back, well, Chris, there goes you. There goes 35 people knows what he's got for followers. So
anyway. You got to remember it. You got to take it with a grain of salt and remember that you know the people that are on there probably are the vocal minority anyway in terms of the negativity that they want to spread. So. I appreciate you having me on. And I know
thank you very much.
You wanted to, but we'll do it again soon.
Didn't mean to keep you so long, but appreciate it very much, Chris.
All good, buddy.
Take care, my friend. All right.
Okay, bye.
Chris Doering. Doering got a touchdown. Yeah. I meant to, didn't mean to stay that long with Chris, but hey, good stuff there. And we got the Minister of Information coming up next, so we do have to get him on. Let's do this while we're waiting.
Job-related accidents create incredible stress on your finances, your relationships, and most importantly, your sense of well-being. When the adjuster is not approving benefits you're entitled to by law, you need Dan Hightower to help you understand all of your legal options. Daniel L. Hightower has been fighting for accident victim justice in Ocala and statewide since 1976. Call Daniel L. Hightower today to better understand all your legal options. 352-629-7777.
1976. I want to tell you about Center State Bank. I was over there today. Saw my friend Tom Ingram with his new dog, Ruff. He tried to tell me his name was Mullen, but it really wasn't his new dog. Coming out of the bank there, Center State Bank, that beautiful bank you see in the top left-hand corner there. I go over there for lots of reasons. Today I went over in business and deposit and visited and saw some of my friends. And Center State Bank is more than a bank. It's also a community house for people to come and take part in. They, as you know, they hold special events there. You can book it far enough ahead of time if you're willing to pay for the cleaning. And they take select few people. They've had weddings there, meetings there, quarterback clubbings, what have you. They do that because they really are involved in their community. As it says, Center State Bank, centered on community and customer service. You heard me talk about this place a lot and their principles like world-class service and faith and family, etc. They have 82 locations in 30 Florida counties. Check them out on CenterStateBank.com. They're located, this bank, particularly one, is located Silver Springs Boulevard in Ocala, 352-368-6800, CenterState.com. Center State Bank, centered on community and customer service. One more while I call my friend. This is RenStar, the RenStar Medical Research people. You see all the stuff on there that we have because they're involved in a very big thing called the Scott Brantley Trophy. And we're proud of this. As you see the articles here, this we call Graham Hall. The articles on the Scott Brantley Award, which the 4 finalists have been announced. We announced them earlier. And Scott Brantley, of course, the former Gator great, a guy who is now retired, obviously, from football. Scott Brantley Award that goes to the top senior in the 6-county area for citizenship, scholarship, football excellence, etc. The 4 finals will be at the Ocala Quarterback Club meeting Wednesday night. During the season, RenStar sponsors RenStar Star of the Week. These 4 young men have been RenStar Star of the Week. Of course, RenStar Medical Research, superior medical research facility with a proven reputation as a high-quality, patient-centered facility. RenStar Medical Research brings cutting-edge medical research to trials in Ocala for Alzheimer's, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraine, and fibromyalgia. Go online at www.renstar.net. Check them out. Find out when they say, why they say. RenStar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. And with that, we go back to the hotline, the RenStar split screen. We talk to our buddy who's doing double duty these days. And
hey, buddy,
I'm going to get you up here in the line 1 second there, Minister. The Minister of Information himself, Graham Hall. What's up, Gray?
Hey, buddy, how you doing, man? Good to be here tonight.
Good to talk with you again. I wanted to know if you have any recruiting information because we had an announcement tonight that there's a 2021 commit, Javante Rucker, who's played quarterback for Vanguard, and I've got reports on him from our Scott Brantley scouts that when he gets this ball in his hands, it's dynamic.
Sure.
One of the RenStar scouts, when they're running the Scott Brantley scout says when he has the ball, he says exciting things happen. He thinks he'll probably be a wide receiver when he plays. He's only a sophomore. As you know, Vanguard had a terrific year, and this young man is somebody that apparently has a great future. What do you know about him?
Yeah, Vanguard did have a terrific year, and Rucker was a big part of it. Florida is recruiting him to be a wide receiver. That's probably where he will end up. It all depends really on how much he continues growing. He's 6 feet. He was 5'11" before the season started. He's 6 feet tall. All signs point to him being around 6'2", which is ideal wide receiver. I mean, height if he's going to be a slot wide receiver, but he played quarterback for his sophomore season at Vanguard this year. They had a great year, like you said, but it's going to be interesting to see where he winds up. You know, people think that 2021 kid, rising junior. That's pretty early, but this is when you really want to be getting in for these kids because, you look around the state at, up there in Jacksonville, you look in Ocala, all those guys that are committed within Florida's range that, aren't committed to Florida, programs got in there this early for them. And if Dan Mullen wants to land some of these top kids, I mean, the Rucker is not really ranked right now in terms of a star ranking, but 24/7 Sports is way too early. Big Board has him as the number 11 wide receiver prospect in that 2021 class. So you have to think that if they can get that guy and he, ends up being that good, that is obviously someone that is a huge coup for Dan Mullen to win, on the recruiting trail. It's never too early to get those guys because you look back in a few years and say, that could be one of those guys who really helps build your class. So a big thing for Dan Mullen, but a lot can change in the next 2 years. But that is someone who, if you go and watch their games time and time again, a dynamic athlete in all facets.
Well, I think, and you followed recruiting pretty closely back before you became a star and started covering everything, like basketball and writing for Gator Bait and doing radio shows. I had you back to have you before you became a big superstar, and you used to come on the show, and I had to pay you a fortune to come on, like I do now.
Don't reveal that. You're telling your own pockets now.
And anyway, we talked about Mullen, the importance of that last recruiting season to salvage it, which is what he did.
Yeah.
He more than salvaged it. He had a win there. Now, you think about can can you build on that? Starting with a guy like Rucker, although he's not a commit for next year, that's how you're built. It's like saving up draft choices, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I mean, Jim McElwain, he had kind of like set the early seeds in there for the 2019 class, even back in 2017, and had a fairly good 2019 class put together before, everything went to crap. But that's what you need to do. You need to recruit 2 cycles ahead. And you look at Miami's 2020 class, you look at their 2019 class. Those were, those seeds were sown 2 years, 3 years in advance. And that's how you win the state of Florida because, you're competing against Miami, Florida State, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, the whole likes. You can't afford to go after these kids just when they become juniors and seniors. You have to go after these kids and kind of take a few gambles. This is absolutely a gamble in a sense because you never know. I'm not trying to call anyone out or make any, criticize anyone, but you look at Florida's 2019 class 2 years ago, they had Jaleel McRae, and then McRae tore his ACL twice, and now he's in FSU's class. So certainly a lot can happen, unfortunately being this early, but if you want to even have a shot at some of the top talent, you got to go in there this early, and I think you have to give Dan Mullen credit for getting a kid that, I don't even need to speak to it. If you watch Vanguard's games, it's clear that he is a kid with amazing potential. Could be potentially the next Kadarius Toney.
Exactly, I was going to say. Sounds like from my guys tell me he's not a Kadarius.
He can do it all. Very agile, very dynamic. If he keeps growing, I think he still ends up inside at some point. But he could really play at multiple positions and could be one of those guys who helps you retake the state of Florida. And I think that's what Dan Mullen absolutely needs to do after some recruiting misses out west. Yeah,
one of our GNK guys points out in that Blaylock that Mullen started a relationship with Emory Jones 4 years ago.
Yeah, this is the time. And that led to, we've gone over it over and over again. Emory Jones would not have come to Florida if it wasn't for that Dan Mullen relationship. He was bound for Alabama or bound for Ohio State, whoever you want to believe. And him knowing Dan Mullen since, Mullen was the first coach to offer him was a huge reason, not as right on with that was a huge reason that he came to Florida instead of going, to one of those other premier programs. He bought into a team that was coming off a 4-7 season because he liked the coach so much. So that is a huge factor, and you have to go after these guys early because kids remember, the coach that was first one in there telling them, hey, you could be a star in 3-4 years.
For sure. Graham Hall, you can read him in Gator Bait. You can read him in my newspaper. It came to my door on Sunday, and there you were there on the Gainesville Sun because it's in my Ocala store. Alabama hears the same stuff.
Are you doing that?
Yeah, and of course you can hear him on several shows. I don't know how many you're on now, but you're all over the place. I have to get you under contract again before 2019.
This is the only one that matters, man.
I won't be able to get you back next. You'll say I'll text you. You'll say who? Who was that guy?
I always got you can't play like that.
I love having you on. Talk to me a little bit, just a minute up here about Florida State. I mean, I know we try to keep our hats of objectivity on here for the most part. I've kind of done my time in journalism for 50 years. I think it's enough for me to sit back now and be a little bit of a fan and still can maintain some modicum of objectivity. But the win was significant for so many reasons. We know the story about the streaks, the 5 years, the 36, the 41, and what have you, and going to Tallahassee, a place, by the way, which Steve Spurrier just couldn't win there. And it is no small thing to go up there. I don't care who's coaching and bring home a win. And then the behavior after the game, I'll get your take on that. And by the way, congratulations to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who now announced today he's coming out. Give me your take on Florida State, Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Willie Taggart certainly got exposed in a sense because of his assistant coaches. It was so clear if you followed how he came to Florida State from Oregon that his lack of being able to bring over a large part of his assistant coach staff from Oregon was going to be a huge factor in kind of a bumpy road. I mean, how many of us can say, how much of a factor it was that Mullen was able to bring, Gonzalez, Hevesy, Grantham, Billy Gonzalez. That was a huge factor in Florida's offensive renaissance, resurgence, whatever you want to have. But Willie Taggart didn't really have that luxury because everything got kind of blown up. He was limited by his buyouts with Jim Leavitt. Mario Cristobal got retained there at Oregon. They stayed internal. that kind of sabotaged Taggart's chances of being pretty successful, and it definitely gave him a little bit of a larger hill to overcome, even though he had the talent. He kind of got it was a unique situation, I'll say that, but I certainly thought that he probably did even worse than many people expected, installing the new offense and getting guys to buy in. I mean, I don't want to call it a PR mishap, but over the summer they were posting all those videos of them dancing, acting like everything was fun and games, as if they were going to be the 2014 team again, just with a new coach, as if he was about to do what John Gruden did with that, Bucks team that he inherited from Dungy, that he was going to instantly lead them back right away, and it was just the coach. Mm-hmm. That is not something you do when you are, I don't know, that he just had a very poor read of the situation, and that's become very, very apparent, and it's going to be tough for him to get out of the situation. Their former AD took a job with the NCAA. They're going to hire a new AD. So it could be a very situation similar to Jim McElwain and Scott Strickland, where the new AD initially says, hey, my full support is behind this guy, but the AD pretty much soon will realize that his legacy or her legacy will be tied to what Willie Taggart does unfairly when they didn't hire him, and it'll result in him probably being fired before he ever has a chance to turn around. And I think that it being the third largest margin of victory, the corny stuff, all that's already out about him, the fact that the recruiting class is a few weeks away from falling apart, this could be a very unique situation for Dan Mullen. I think I told you last week that my column was about to be about how they could play Florida State, possibly UCF, which we'll see if that happens, and then Miami next year, who just had another really bad season.
Yeah. All right, I got to stop right there, but I got to get you on earlier next time. I went a little long with Doering, but thank you very much. And read him in Gator Bait, hear him on shows. You can read him in the Gainesville Sun. He's our Minister for Information. Graham Hall, great job, Graham. I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for coming on. All right, Graham Hall, thank you. All right, Graham Hall there. Coming up right now, we've got Franz Beard next. I'm late to getting to him, and I'll see if I can get that going now while we tell you about Mark's Prime. Let's see. Let me do this right now. This is when you're producing your own stuff, and you have nobody watching the clock for you. So we'll see if we can make that happen right now. Well, I'll also tell you about Mark's Prime, located in Ocala and Gainesville. 2 locations to serve you. They have superior food at Mark's Prime. They've got one in Gainesville. I keep waiting for get an invitation from Franz Beard to take me there, but so far he hasn't invited me. Mark's Prime, of course, one of the best restaurants in Florida, and they have give you a unique dining experience. There's a couple of pictures of the food on the screen. Check them out. No code Gainesville 352-336-0077, Ocala 352-402-0097. Have complimentary valet parking. You can go online at marksprimesteakhouse.com, find out what they mean. They say unique dining experience. They please the palate and soothe the soul with the finest beef, the freshest seafood, premium wines, and naturally fresh vegetables. Mark's Prime Steakhouse and Seafood, Gainesville and Ocala. And let's go out to the hotline now and see if we can catch up with Francis, who's out and about tonight, up and around. Sorry I got to you so late, my friend. We had one of those nights, and good to have you on the show. You must be feeling pretty good today about that Gator win. I think you predicted it. I don't know what your score was, but I think you said you thought it'd be a substantial victory, and that's what it was.
Well, I thought I didn't think Florida was going to have a close ball game. I thought the Gators were going to win solidly. They won by a bigger margin than I thought, and quite frankly, probably should have won. They probably should have hung 50 or more on the Seminoles. I thought it took a while for them to really get cranking, and they should have had a touchdown there in the first quarter and probably should have scored another couple times. But, 41-14 is still really, really solid.
Not too shabby, right?
Not at all. And the thing I think that this game did, buddy, was it really showed you the direction Florida's going. And I think if I'm an FSU fan tonight, I am really frightened by the direction the program has a chance to be heading in. This was not a good season and if the AC, people say, well, 5-7 was almost a winning season. The ACC is horrendous this year. I mean, absolutely horrendous. You got one decent team in the ACC, and that is Clemson, and everybody else sucks. There isn't another team in the ACC that could break even in the SEC. Not a one. And I got to, Clemson is the only team in that league that could post a winning record. Clemson could probably come close to running the table in the SEC as well as the ACC. But there isn't another team there. So FSU's 5-7 record is quite deceiving because it's really, really worse than that.
Yeah, it is. You're right. Let's go back to the day for a minute and put it in perspective. Charlie Pell once told me, and I mentioned this the other day, and someone said, why do you mention Charlie Pell's name? Well, like it or not, he was a significant person in this program. He built a lot of infrastructure, and he got in trouble. He did wrong, and he paid for it. And he shouldn't have done it, by the way. I'm not endorsing his behavior. I'm just saying he said that what happened, because he got caught cheating, and he did, and badly with all those violations that were well documented. Franz wrote about it, I wrote about it, and we still love Ward Pell, and still as one of the former first ladies. The fact is he cheated and got caught, although Steve Spurrier has a little different view of that, who's, he's Captain Honesty. He wouldn't cheat on, if he found a penny, he'd turn it in. He says he doubts anything happened, even with that supposed check that was given to a player in Palatka. He thinks it never happened. But anyway, it did happen, and as Charlie said, if we hadn't got calling cheating, meaning him, FSU never would have caught us. Now the table has turned a bit.
Oh, I think it's that Florida is on the precipice of really, really putting some distance between Florida State. I think Miami's going to do better than people expect. I think Mark Richt is on the verge of building a really solid program there. A lot of injuries this year, and he doesn't have a quarterback. But if he ever gets the quarterback, we've seen what he can do with a decent quarterback in the past. And I think I don't think that they can pass what Florida's going to do, but I think they're going to be very good. I think FSU could wind up being the third, fourth, or maybe even the fifth best team in the state for a long time, because I think Charlie Strong's going to do very well at South Florida. And if UCF can keep Josh Heupel in tow, he's a fine football coach. All you got to do is look at what he did with Missouri's offense, and then take a look at what he's done this year. Think about what UCF has done. A transition year is usually a down year, and they transitioned and didn't miss a beat, and the offense actually is better than it was last year. So UCF could be in for the long haul, being a really good program, and FSU could be really, really down on its luck for a long, long time. They're not going to get the recruits, I don't think. I think a lot of people saw a lot of selfishness out there, and I think a lot of kids are going to look at that and say, is this what I want to be a part of? I don't think so.
For sure. All right, let me get to a couple other things. Let's talk about, I thought the turning point in the game in Tallahassee, and I saw a YouTube clip, I mentioned this earlier, where Mullen told the team at halftime, basically. And by the way, it's amazing what goes on in the locker room at halftime. You think they're all sitting there paying rapt attention. And I've been in that locker room, as you know, behind a number of times back when I was doing the book. And these kids are all listening to their music and eating popcorn and all this stuff going on. But Mullen said it loud enough to be heard. He said, let's go back out. We're doing well. He said, let's give a little bit more strain to those blocks. He said, some of those 2 and 3 and 4 yard runs will turn into 30 or 40 or 50 yard runs. And he said, and we've got to get the ball and go in and score. Well, guess what happened? Exactly that, didn't it?
Oh, exactly. I am so impressed with what Dan has done this year. I was talking today with Shelley Meyer, and Shelley Meyer says they aren't the least bit surprised at what he's done at Florida, and they think he's going to be here a long, long time. and he's going to have Florida winning national championships here. I couldn't agree more. I think he really understands what it takes to build a program. And you got to understand something. You look at what he did. He won 69 ball games in 9 years at Mississippi State. Take away that first season when they were 5-7 and they were 64-32. That's unheard of in Starkville. That 60, it's kind of like, people say human years against dog years. Well, 64 wins in Starkville is like 300 wins in Alabama years, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it is. And friends, let's shift gears for a second and talk about, you have this revolving door, the coach's carousel, this fired, hired deal that keeps going on, and it started now. And we've been keeping tabs through your column, which appears, by the way, on the Buddy Martin Show page, the Gator Nation Kingdom page, Gator Nation News page, BuddyMartinMedia.com, all over the place. Really good column. If you're not getting it, you're missing out on what's going on with the University of Florida sports. And basketball is here, and France is Mr. College Basketball. We'll talk, maybe get a word in on that before the night's over. But I wanted to talk to you about the latest on coaching changes and proposed coaching changes, and the outrageous suggestion that someone said that apparently Auburn has talked to trying to get Bob Stoops and wants to get rid of the $31 million buyout with Auburn is unbelievable to me. What is your thought on that?
First off, the guy reporting this has got to, what you fill in the blank for, and the last two words are for brains. Then, and anybody here who's a Gator who would think that or even buy into that, you got rocks in your head too. Gus Malzahn isn't going anywhere. $32 million is still $32 million, and that's what it would take to buy Gus Malzahn out. And besides that, he's got a lot of support there with a lot of people. Now, that support could erode with a second straight 7-5 or whatever like that. But you got to remember something. He is the only active SEC coach who has ever beaten Nick Saban. You think about that for a second.
And in last year.
He's done it twice.
Yeah.
He's beaten Nick Saban twice. Actually, he's beaten Nick Saban 3 times because he was the offensive coordinator in 2010 when they won the national championship then. Mm-hmm. He knows what it takes to beat Nick Saban. The problem is he's at Auburn. Auburn is never going to get the players on a consistent basis that you're going to get at Alabama. Just isn't going to happen. And the people at Auburn have to temper their expectations and be realistic. Gus is the kind of guy that I think that every 3 or 4 years is going to come up with that really big team that's going to challenge for a national championship. But he's not going to do it every single year. Nick can do it every year.
Well, the best
not too many others can do that.
The best thing I read and heard, I think I heard it on Feinbaum, is that the former Ole Miss coach may wind up there. Hugh Freeze is the offensive coordinator, right? Which makes a little bit of sense, although they're apparently, according to Feinbaum, they're close friends. Very close friends.
Gus, you got to understand something. Gus Malzahn
calls the plays.
Was at Arkansas State.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Auburn. And or maybe it was the other way around. Hugh Freeze was at Arkansas State, and he went to Ole Miss, and then Gus Malzahn followed that up.
I think that might have been the way it was, yeah.
Auburn. But they have known each other a long time. They are close friends. And I got to tell you something. Hugh Freeze is the other coach in recent memory in the SEC
that has
beaten
Yeah.
Nick Saban.
Now he's got to be approved by somebody before he can get back to coaching. I don't know who it is. Probably Sankey in a group, but he's got to be approved.
Pauses up.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But all right. So that's one. Now look, friends, we're a couple of war horses here. We got a bunch of people watching online. Let's point out to them be careful what you believe at this time of the year. You know, Coach Spurrier likes to call it about the talking season. I call this the fibbing season. This is the fibbing season because everybody's got a story, and if they can do anything they can to disparage somebody or convince a young man not to go to a school, they'll do it. I mean, you got the rumor mill, coaches fired and hired supposedly, players coming out and not coming out, commits and uncommits, decommits, you got it. And so be very careful about what you hear. I thought this was interesting. Apparently someone is saying that Jeremy Pruitt has on his short list for his offensive coordinator position, Jim McElwain. What'd you think of that?
I don't think he could be that dumb. I mean,
did you see, by the way, McElwain on the sideline throwing balls in the Ohio State-Michigan game to the Michigan receivers? And they got about a 2-second shot of him on the sideline throwing balls on the sideline. So that didn't work out too well, by the way.
Well, his teeth match the numbers on the.
Oh, you're terrible. You're terrible. Let's look at this coaching thing, all right? I won't go with the whole list because I know like Mac Brown, everybody, they're going for the old guys, friends. I mean, you and I got a chance. Herm Edwards had a great year, 63 years old. He's going to be coach of the year probably. Kansas hired Les Miles, who's 65. Mac Brown, 67, is going to North Carolina from all the things we reported, things we hear. So, hey, and by the way, the best coach in the country right now is 67. So those 60-somethings are having a bit of a renaissance in football today.
Exactly. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Leavitt, who's another guy that's not a spring chicken,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's the new head coach at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Kirby Hocutt knows Leavitt very, very well. Jim Leavitt was his position coach, at Kansas State when he and Brent Venables were roommates and linebackers there at Kansas State. The guy he'd love to have, of course, is Venables, but Venables has already said, I'm going to be here at Clemson while my son is playing at Clemson.
Yeah.
He made a promise to his son. And what I'm really understanding when I hear that is I'm going to be here until Kansas State opens up, until Bill Snyder retires.
Could be. Could very well be. Anything else you're hearing on coaches?
Well, Tyson Helton.
He's in, yeah.
He's at Western Kentucky.
Right.
Barry Odom has basically told Louisville, I have absolutely zero interest there. Kendall Briles probably going to be the head coach at Texas State. I think that's a very, very likely scenario. Jeff Brom, I understand, is
he's staying in Purdue, supposedly.
Well, I've heard that he's got until tomorrow morning to make it official. Look, it's a lot easier to win the Big Ten West than it is to win the same division in the ACC with Clemson.
Yeah.
And I think he'd be smart to stay there. Clemson, Louisville, I think the path they will go to, now that Barry Odom has said he doesn't want to be the backup plan, has no interest in going there, and with Brom saying no, I think the guy they will go after is Neil Brown, who's at Troy, or else Scott Satterfield, who is at Appalachian State. Scott Satterfield, by the way, didn't even get so much as a phone call or an email from North Carolina, which tells us that Bubba Cunningham had the deal going with Mac Brown, working that out long before the firing of Larry Fedora took place.
Yeah, they had a little something going on there for sure. And that doesn't surprise me. Mac's a very proactive guy. That's how we say. Well, what about, looks like Leach is saying he's not interested, and they're not interested in Leach at Texas Tech. I don't know who they'll hire. This is going to be interesting the next couple of weeks. And we got recruiting coming up here. So some people want to move fast on this stuff,
I'll tell you, two moves that could take place. Dana Holgerson could take the job at Colorado State.
He's got a better job now. Yes, he does. He got a better job now. West Virginia's a better job. I know that program.
Well, I guarantee you that's a very distinct possibility. It's a very, very real possibility. And if he leaves West Virginia, I can tell you who wants the West Virginia job and who would take it in a heartbeat, and they'd be smart to hire him, and that is Mike Leach, which would mean Bubba Spurrier comes east of the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
And Mama Spurrier would be happy as she could be to have Bubba and all of his brood a whole lot closer.
And she's already got Scott in Tampa, so.
Yeah, so she would certainly feel better about that. But watch that. That is, I think that is a move. It's not being publicized a lot, but I know, I know on from very good sources that the interest is mutual between Colorado and Dana Holgerson, and that if West Virginia comes open, Mike Leach would jump at that in a heartbeat.
Well, maybe if Holgerson goes someplace, he can take Brady again with him. Brady coached about 2 months with him in West Virginia. Okay, so all right, so Francis, let's get this one other thing out of the way. I want to talk hoop for just a second. If it's okay, we'll go a couple minutes over because I didn't get you on until late. Let's talk about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, his contributions to the program, the way he handled his announcement, and et cetera. I became a fan of Chauncey's at Media Day this year, and I listened to him for a good 20 minutes. I think I got an interview someplace, just getting his thoughts. And he seemed very focused, and he talked about things that he wanted to get better at, and he was committed to, and he seemed very confident in what he was talking about. And I liked his personality, and I liked the way he played, and I liked the way he led. He really was a safety who had to play a cornerback position a lot of times, and one of those hybrid guys. And I liked almost everything he did, and now he's made a decision to go early. I don't know where he'll go. I don't know. He's maybe a third rounder. I'm not second round. I don't even know. I have no idea.
Second round, almost certain. Probably the top half of the second round. And the reason he'll go so high is because he can play the safety. He can play that safety that can play on the line of scrimmage and still get back in coverage. And he's also a physical corner who can play as a corner. And in effect, you get a guy that can be essentially four positions. He can be your nickel, he can be your safety, he can be your corner, and he can be that sort of hybrid safety linebacker guy that plays up on the line of scrimmage and stuffs the run.
He is 212, so he's not small. He's not like he's, he's not a monster.
And this is what they're going for. They're going for these safeties who are tough and who can run and who can tackle, who can play up on the line of scrimmage in that 210 to 220 range that can really do it. And he fits that role perfectly. Yeah. Ja'Kai Polite hasn't announced, but he's a guy, buddy, that's going to go in the first 20 picks.
He was Walter Camp Player of the Week this week, by the way. Congratulations, Ja'Kai.
He has to go. I think there's going to be a lot of speculation whether Jabari Zuniga goes and whether Jawan Taylor goes. Mm-hmm. I think Zuniga, everything I'm hearing about Zuniga is he's a fourth-round guy, and that he needs to stay here another year, get a little bit stronger and everything. And I would agree with that assessment because I think he's a guy that can come back, have a big year next year, and move up to maybe a late first or a second-round guy. Jawan Taylor, if he gets his evals back from the NFL and they say second round, he needs to jump at that because he's never going to go higher than that. He will never go higher than the second round. He's got short arms, buddy, and people with short arms don't play tackle in the NFL. You can play a guy that doesn't have all that great height. You can play a 6'3" or 6'4" guy out on the outside on the offensive line if he's got long arms and can get his arms in that guy's chest.
Yeah. All right, final question before I ask you basketball because I got to get going here. If I said to you, which would be the most likely thing to happen, and which one would you guess? Let's say that there'd be a 7 overtime game, and they'd score
146
points. Or this is what I'm talking about. If I said this to you before the season started, I said there's going to be a game with 7 overtimes and 146 points be scored. And they're not two great offenses. Or Florida is going to wind up averaging 427 yards a game and 35 points. Which would you say would be most likely?
I would have said the second one, simply because Mullen got to coach better athletes top to bottom than he's ever had here at Mississippi State. Now, he had a Dak Prescott, and he had a couple guys that were pretty good ball players. But top to bottom of the offensive roster, he's never had this much talent. He certainly has never had this much speed. And I really thought that it was possible for the Gators to score a lot of points this year, and they've certainly proven it. What if, goodness, all you got to do is look at Felipe Franks, who goes from 6.3 per pass attempt to 7.8. A yard and a half per pass attempt is humongous. That is huge. And when NFL guys are looking at quarterbacks, that's the first thing they look at is yards per attempt, not yards per completion, but yards per attempt. Second thing they look at is accuracy. And his accuracy improved by 5 points, his yards per attempt by 1.5, and 23 touchdown passes, the most since Tebow threw 30 in 2008, the national championship season.
Right.
So, I would say that Mullen's reputation as an offensive and quarterback guru has been, let's face it, he lived up to his reputation.
Job well done. Yeah. Job well done. So, okay, Francis, let's talk. We got about 2 minutes to talk hoops. I watched a little bit of the tournament. It was a rough one for Mike White's team. And they had the big game against Stanford, scored a bunch of points. But you're right about the young players. It looks like there's got some really promising young players. Those guys look like they can make it. They're about a year away. If they can get some kind of presence, if you can go stand there and turn into a concrete statue just yourself for a while these young guys develop, that next year, if they get somebody down low who can actually block out and actually get a rebound and don't have hands of stone, for crying out loud, then this team has got possibilities. Tell me if I'm right or wrong and where this team is going and what you think the takeaway is from the weekend. Well, we got a game Wednesday night, right?
Yeah, we got a game with North Florida coming up. Here's the thing that is important to look at. The toughest place to get young guys to commit to and do well is at the defensive end. Guess what these guys are doing very well, and that is they're playing great defense. The problem is all on the offensive end, and that they got guys that really, really haven't figured it all out yet on that end, and they don't know when to take shots, when not to, and they're not playing, what I would call freely. Their mind, they're thinking too much. And they just don't know what's a good shot, what isn't, etc. And again, there's no down low presence that's any kind of consistent. Kavarius Hayes, I think, has shown some improvement the last 2 or 3 ball games, but he's still not a guy that's going to get you 12 points and 7-8 rebounds a game, which is what Igbuno could do. And Kavarius can't do that. He's a fine defensive player, but they've got to figure out a way to get some presence down low. And the young guys have just got to relax and learn what's a good shot, what isn't. And when they start taking good shots, they'll start making some. Right now, they're taking a lot of bad shots. But that's going to change, buddy. The defense, though, is the part that I'm encouraged by. They're playing really, really good defense.
Question, people want to know what happened to Gak. What's his latest deal? I know he's been injured. I don't think it's anything new, but what do you think?
I think that if they can get him by mid-December back healthy again, they'll be happy.
Okay. Do you see this team maybe starting to play a little better by conference tournament?
I think that this team, when it hits January, will be playing very, very good basketball. I think we got to suffer a little bit for the next month. I think that's what we're going to have to do. I think they're going to have to win games defensively in the next month. I think that by the time they get these guys to January, they'll all have 10 or 12 games under their belts, and you'll start seeing a different type of ball club. I think they'll relax. I think they'll play a whole lot better once that happens. The key is they can't get discouraged. They can't let the troubles they're having now discourage them. And we see that so often with young guys that they struggle early and then they can't get it out of their heads because they've never struggled before. They've always been the stars of their high school team.
It's an adjustment there. Got to get the recruiting out of them.
Check on one thing for me.
Okay.
Florida got a commitment today.
Yeah, Rucker. We announced it earlier. Put it back on the screen. He's a wide receiver. He's actually a quarterback he's another Kadarius Toney. So I'm going to put it up on the screen. Here's the graphic of him.
Here's my question.
Song one. That's the one, the Mullen clapping. That's the other one. Yeah, go ahead, Franz.
Here's my question for you. Is he the son of the great Erman Rucker?
You know who would know that is Richard Burton. And then how about Reggie Rucker? Yeah, also. So I don't know. I'll have to find that out.
Erman Rucker, for the people who don't know, I think is the greatest athlete that ever came out of Ocala. I mean, a man among boys. And he played at Howard High School back in the '60s.
Howard Academy. Yeah.
Then ended up going to Tennessee State, and then played quite some time in the NFL as a defensive back. But I played high school basketball against him, and I was 6'1" and 153 pounds at the time. And there's Erman Rucker, who was 6'2" and about 220, and he never lifted a weight, and he looked like something that they carved statues out of. I never in my life felt so embarrassed to be skinny in my life as I did that day.
Yeah. Francis, as usual, good stuff. We'll see you again on Friday, if not before. You have I'll see you Wednesday night at the Quarterback Club. The Scott Brantley Trophy is going to be. We're going to have our 4 players. I don't think you were there for one of them, right?
Yeah, I will.
And so we will have those 4 players there with their coaches on Wednesday night, and that's going to be a special evening at the Quarterback Club. You'll be there joining with us. So we'll see you there, and thanks for your time.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you guys are doing down in Ocala for Scott. People just don't realize, buddy, what a great football player Scott Brantley was.
I know you're a big fan of his, I know.
One of the greatest high school players, if not the greatest high school player ever in this state. I mean, I saw him, and I've seen the great players that have come in, and, it's hard to say sometimes who the best was, but he's on the shortest of short lists. And certainly at Florida, if it not for that concussion his senior year, would have gone down as a first-team All-American and would have set tackling records that would never be broken at the University of Florida.
Yes, and I have a picture on the screen of with Scott Brantley with one of the 4 players, the quarterback from Westport, who's going to Tennessee commit, and then the Scott Brantley Trophy picture with the 6 counties in it, and that'll be a part of what we talk about on Wednesday night. We're really proud of what we're doing there, and glad you could be a part of it, Franz.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate anything that honors Scott Brantley. You know that.
All right, my man, I appreciate you. All right? Have a good one, Franz Beard. All right. All right, we're going to do this. I got a little something for you here. You might enjoy if you're still awake out there. And I've got something from one of the coaches, advice to recruits. I think you do well to hang on for a second, because I think Coach Sunseri nailed it on his advice to what kids should do. And I'm going to tack this up, and I'm going to put it on here, and you should do the same. Before I do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Grinders. It's an Ocala institution here, and it's a place that I love going for. In fact, I'll be going there tomorrow to get my new jacket. I've been asked to do the reading of the night before Christmas for the Ocala Symphony Orchestra under the lights on Friday. I'm thrilled, so I had to get a new jacket, did that. I went down and saw David and said, David, can you help me out? What should I get? And he fixed me up with this beautiful black sport coat. It's going to look sharp. And here's some of the things they have down there. There's a few. There's beautiful Peter Millar jacket and some shirts and what have you. If you don't know about it, you need to make a trip down there and see them. They've got one, actually, it's the same group, but it's not the same owner, on Rodeo Drive in California, but they don't have the same kind of prices they have in Rodeo Drive. Grinders has been known for its service. It's great quality goods. It's been known for dressing several generations of people in the Ocala and Gainesville area. Many times, Coach Billy Donovan used to get his suits there and his ties and what have you. So, and now David Dishonest does a great job with his goods. And you see, if you look close to the bottom right, you got Elvis the dog, who's always there hanging out. He'll come over and say hi to you. Go by 405 East Silver Springs Boulevard in Ocala, 352-629-3195, and see what they've got, why the men of Ocala and Gainesville area love seeing those Grinders boxes under the tree. Because if you don't know what to buy, David can help you and give you some choices. I would highly suggest that you do that. Well, I tell you about our friends at All Florida Sports. Sportswear. They support G&K at All Florida Sportswear, our friends Tony and Ashley, and we support them. If you have any needs for any shirts or hats, log on and find out. They got good prices. I know they had a big special going on Black Friday. I wish I'd have gotten hold of it in time. I'd have bought myself. I need a couple new hats. Got my hat back from Brendan the Crown Prince finally. So we got that going on. And before I give you this last thing, I want to tell you about this. Jennifer, who's one of our great original founders here and a big supporter. She has a Tupperware business, which she puts together. And here's some bright, shiny things you can get by going to Facebook Tupperware Jen and checking out some of the goods. If you don't know about Tupperware, ask your grandmother. She'll tell you this is something that something's been an institution for a long time. When you do cook, you're a mom and a grandmother, you cook things, or even a granddad, and you need something to put them in, to put them away. There's no better stuff than Tupperware. It also got things like crock pots or electric griddles or whatever. They've got terrific choice of items, holiday things you can get for them. Stuff if you want tailgating stuff, they got it. Check them out. Facebook Tupperware Jen, or you can go to online to Jenlay, JENLAY.my.tupperware.com and find out about the products you want to purchase. And also, there's a deal going where if you get Tupperware involved, they'll help you with a fundraiser. They'll give back 40% of the sales proceeds to your organization. So this is a terrific answer for you for Christmas and a chance to support one of our own G&K sisters, Jenlay Tupperware Jen. All right? So let's do this. Here's a little something that I saw, that I saved, and hopefully I can get this up on the screen because I think it's worth hearing. You know, you want to know, young kids sometimes they follow the crowd. They don't know quite what to do. And if you're a young man looking for a chance to be a college football player, you need some advice. Coach Sunseri has got some great advice for you, which I like right here very much. And this is great advice. I would tell my grandson this, whatever. Look at this list. Recruits, the contact period has begun. Make sure you don't eliminate yourself in the eyes of recruiters. Now, this is spoken to the young people, all right? Number one, come to school and be in class. You know, half of everything is showing up. I tell interns all the time, want to work for me? You got to show up, number one. And then don't lie to me, look me in the eye and tell me what you're going to do and do it. And this is great advice. Number two, dress appropriately. I'm not telling you what to wear. I'm not telling you can't wear shorts or flip-flops. You dress what's appropriate. Pay attention. Now, this is an interesting one from Coach Sunseri. Pull up your pants. Okay? I'm going to leave that right there, right? Pull up your pants. Number 4, respect all coaches there to visit you. All coaches there to visit you. You never know where he may end up next. So the person you blow off today may be at the school you want to go to next year. Great advice. And finally, this is a big one. Be honest. Okay? Be honest. I think that is terrific advice. I congratulate Coach Sinceri for putting that out there on Twitter. I copied it. I'm going to keep a copy of it. And I think if you know anybody who's going to go through recruiting, that's a good. In fact, as someone said, why does it have to apply just to recruiting? Why can't it apply to everything? It's a great point. I want to thank my guest tonight. Chris Doering was on fire in the first segment. Graham Hall, always good. There's good stuff. And, of course, the Iron Duke, full of information. I want to thank all of you for joining the program tonight. For those of you who might have been having an issue with notifications, not hearing it, a lot of people are getting it. I got it on my phone. I saw it. So maybe there's something with your setting in your computer or your phone about notifications. I put it out every day. When I set it on, send it off when it comes on my phone that this is going to take place. Watch the show. It appears at 9 o'clock. So we'll check it on our end, but I can tell you I've already checked it 100 times, and it's got to be something on your end if you're not getting notifications. Thanks for keeping on trying. I appreciate that. And we'll just say good night. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.